Baptist churches act autonomously. They make up their own rules. The Catholic Church has a hierarchical structure that is supposed to control things like this. And somebody needs to, and there are people, Judy Browns and others, we're going to have a guest here in a minute that are speaking out about this from the Catholic perspective. But it's time for the Catholic Church to start taking a stand and saying, these people have excommunicated themselves already because their support of abortion, for example, but they need to make it official. Nancy Pelosi, you mentioned a moment ago, she needs to go. Biden, the Kennedys, just go on down the list. These people need to be marched to the front door and kicked to the curb by the Catholic Church, and they're not doing it. Now, up in Canada, we have a real interesting issue developing. There's LifeTalk News, which is a news service that puts, we use a lot of their materials here, that puts pro-life or abortion-related news up on the internet. They've gone out here on the forefront to expose some of these Catholics, and now they're coming under an enormous amount of pressure. Joining us from Ottawa, it's a beautiful city. Have you ever been to Ottawa? Ottawa. It's a beautiful city. John Henry Weston. I got his name back. Hello, John. Hello, John Henry.
Hey there, Mark. Good to be with you.
I'm sorry I botched your name there. You should have been named Bubba or something like that. We're here in Texas.
We're from Texas.
We'd have got that better. You guys are kind of at the forefront here of trying to expose some of the things that we've just been talking about, and now you're catching flack. What's going on up there?
Well, we began an investigation in March of 2009, actually, it started, into what is actually the official international development arm of the Canadian Bishops' Conference. So it's an official arm of the Catholic Church in Canada. And we were investigating what they were doing with their money, the money that they got from, collections at masses all across the country. And we found that they were supporting pro-abortion groups with that money. We first investigated in Mexico, where we have a correspondent, and he looked at 5 of 11 groups supported in Mexico by this Catholic organization. And it turns out that 5 of them were pro-abortion groups. They were abortion advocacy groups. The interesting thing was, when we called the organizations, called Canadian Catholic Organization for Development and Peace, or just Development and Peace for short, when we called them about it, they said, oh no, we don't really fund groups, we fund projects. So this project, let's say they were funding to get women out of abusive relationships, let's say, is undertaken by various groups, and they don't care about the groups. So let's say, for example, it's not the name of the group, but let's say Planned Parenthood was offering a program to help women get out of abusive relationships. They'd fund Planned Parenthood, despite the fact that Planned Parenthood is a huge abortion advocacy group as well. And so that is what has happened. All over the world, not only in Mexico, Development and Peace is funding these pro-abortion groups, but they're not saying that they're funding groups. They're saying, oh, no, we're funding these projects that we agree with that have nothing to do with abortion.
Do you think they would fund, let's say the Ku Klux Klan had a project that they agreed with?
That's right.
Would they fund the Ku Klux Klan?
Exactly our point. And so the weirdest part, though, we could have had that debate. They would say they want to fund these projects, and we'd say, why can't you fund? There's hundreds of other groups in these countries, great groups, authentically Catholic groups, if you want to call them that you could be funding to do the same stuff, but they don't do that. And so we're pointing this out, and they're arguing with us. But the weird part is they would never actually have the argument. Their method of dealing with these revelations was to deny them, to say that they didn't exist, that it was untrue. And that started us on a now over a year-long debate where we kept putting out evidence, and after we made the initial findings, other news agencies and other groups got into the mix because they just did the same thing. A bunch of internet research. We went then and did telephone interviews with the people in the groups, but we had evidence. The evidence was so overwhelming it was ridiculous. We taped interviews, Spanish language interviews, with the groups there who admitted openly that they advocated for abortion. In fact, we had news stories from the Philippines, for instance, where certain groups were fighting for a right to choose bill, which the bishops of the Philippines were fighting against and have been for over a year. Well, the group fighting the bishops in the Philippines is actually funded by the Canadian Catholic bishops through Development and Peace. So it's totally outrageous. We have photographic evidence. One of these centers that receives funding from Development and Peace has a massive 20-foot poster inside their offices, which reads, "This is violence." And then what it has is huge letters. "Violence is forcing a girl to carry a pregnancy. We demand the return of therapeutic abortion." And that poster is just huge. It's all along a wall. It's 4 feet high and something like 20 feet across. These are the types of pieces of evidence that we have that are totally overwhelming on 40 or so groups. But it's been denial after denial after denial. And it's been very strange how this proceeded. The first thing that happened was we got a bunch of confirmation from different pro-life leaders around the world asking the Canadian bishops to stop funding these groups. But at the same time, the denials were having an effect. What happened was the Canadian bishops decided to set up an investigation on the first 5 groups in Mexico. So they sent a delegation of 2 Canadian bishops down to Mexico to investigate. However, they were led by Development and Peace, this group which we already had shown had been lying about our reports right from the get-go. So this group, which led the investigation, showed them around, and lo and behold, they came back, the bishops, and said, "Oh, we found no evidence of for what LifeSite News has revealed. There's no evidence to support their claims." Well, in a subsequent interview with one of those 2 bishops, he admitted to me very frankly, "Oh, I'm sorry, I should have done more," because I showed him the direct evidence. They never called us, these bishops who were doing the so-called investigation. No one called any one of our reporters, none of our offices. They didn't. It were very easy to find. In fact, in their report that they said they found no evidence for, they asked if the leaders of LifeSite News could have a dialogue with the bishops of Canada. The weird part is the slander has been so bad from Development and Peace that the bishops of Canada don't want to talk to us at all. We've tried 4 different times to talk to different groups of bishops, and each time been refused. And in addition to that, we have been slammed by various bishops in letters to their dioceses with untrue allegations, stuff that actually we could sue for because it's libelous. For instance, Archbishop James Weisgerber, who is the Archbishop in Winnipeg, who was, at the time when we started this, actually the president of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, said that our accusations against Development and Peace were untrue. The Regina bishop, also in Saskatchewan, Archbishop Daniel Bohan, he sent a similar letter to his diocese saying that our reports were false, and even saying that it was a malicious attack on the church in Canada, so imputing a motive of maliciousness on our part. And I found this very disturbing, so I actually gave Archbishop Bowen a call. And when I talked to him at length, I said to him, "Look, are you in front of a computer?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, click here," and I brought him to the page of evidence. Now, it was in Spanish, and he told me he didn't speak Spanish. The point was, I said, "Look, you can get one of your researchers. We can even go to Google Translate, and you can see it." And you know what his response was? That he didn't. This was not his job. It was Development and Peace's priority or responsibility. And he actually told me something that struck me very deeply. He said, "Look, Development and Peace is an official arm of the church in Canada, and frankly, they are to be believed over you."
Oh my! Regardless of what the evidence is.
Well, apparently so.
And it's, I tell you, we've talked about it in the past here, that we're entering a stage, what I call the winnowing out program. We're finding out who's on our side and who's not. And it's a good thing to know. And this may be what you're seeing there. But, when I heard that this was basically, that the Canadians were basically targeting Mexico, it goes to something we talked about here before, John Henry, and that is that as the United States starts looking like it may at some point in the future prohibit abortion, the abortion lobby already had Canada in its back pocket. Now they're going into Mexico. And abortion is a hot topic in Mexico right now. They're wanting to legalize abortion nationwide, countrywide. And I think that it's part, I don't want to sound like I'm a conspiracy guy, grassy knoll, or see a conspiracy behind every bush. But I'm telling you, something is happening when you're seeing all these Americans and now Canadians. We've already seen the American abortion lobby set up shop in Mexico, and now the Canadian abortion lobby setting up shop in Mexico. Something is going on, and what I think they're doing is, I think they're preparing for the time when abortion is not allowed in the United States. They're going to set up a cottage industry of abortion for the southern part of the United States in Mexico and for the northern part of the United States in Canada. That's what I believe is happening.
Now, John Henry, besides being on the program, what is it that other people can do to help you out, especially with the bishops at this point?
Well, definitely we're needing support, and that is it's a very scary thing what's happened. Inside the Catholic world, I mean, you realize that, people are in Rome and all over the place. Well, Zenit News, which is a huge news agency in the Catholic world, we were trying to reach out to them to have them run an ad for us. We were going to pay them to run an ad just to attract people to the website, lifesitenews.com, to sign up, to give us support if they could. And they actually refused to take us on. Now, I mean, they've used our research before. They've run stories that we've written up before, interviews, because we interview pro-life leaders of all churches and all faiths, but all over the world, and some of that has been of interest to them. So when they rejected our ad, I was shocked and went and talked to them about it. They explained that some bishops in Canada had approached the Vatican in Rome and tried to badmouth us there, and they were actually expecting some kind of report from the Vatican to come out against us. Now, it never did, of course, but nevertheless, it was very detrimental to us not to be able to put out word about LifeSite News through their service, because it reaches a large number of people. So we do want to make people aware of LifeSiteNews.com. It is a service for the pro-life movement. It's there. We've been in existence now for over 15 years. We're a daily news service, and it's there to serve. But we're not able to continue if we're blocked at all these venues.
Right. And when you have to fight, when you're a Catholic entity